Good evening, Namaskar. Welcome to BSHF webinar series 3H Talk-7. I would like to invite organizer Dr. Brahma Singh, Padma Awardee, Chairman, BSHF, New Delhi. Please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Shiv. Namaskar, dosto. Professor Brahm Singh Horticulture Foundation, BSHF, a not-for-profit organization, and myself welcome you all to the talk number 7 of this series 3H, Horticulture for Health and Happiness. I welcome both the organizers, Dr. Pritam Kalia, ICR Rafi Ahmed Kidwai Awardee, and former head Division of Vegetable Science, IARI New Delhi, and Dr. Shailendra Rajan, Director, ICAR-Central Institute of Subtropical Horticulture, Lucknow, to moderate the webinar. BSHF is thankful to Syngenta, Patanjali Ayurved Limited, and NHRDF to sponsor this webinar series. The talk this evening is on Himalayan Medicinal Plants for Health and Happiness by Professor Ravinder Raina, Amity Food and Agriculture Foundation, Amity University, Noida, Uttar Pradesh. BSHF is thankful to him to honor his request despite his very busy schedule of engagements. This evening, Dr. Raina is going to talk on the aspects of Himalayan medicinal plants pertaining to their present scenario and scope of attention on these, as some of these are in the category of endangered plant species. Friends, importance of medicinal plant can hardly be overemphasized, particularly during the corona pandemic. We can't forget the amount of kada we consumed. Most of you are very well aware. Study of medicinal plant are useful to discover new drugs for the pharmaceutical industry. Pharmaceutical industry, which is having a roaring business, they are based on these medicinal plant. They get the clue from there or molecule from there, and building up the immunity. Certain medicinal plants are part of our regular diet, as you know. Hence, they are medicinal food crops. Every day we are taking them, but they are serving the purpose of building up the immunity, and some of them are killing the microbes also. As you know, the chemical quality of medicinal plant, that is what matters. To have high quality drug, plant breeding, agronomical and technological approaches are important. Although plant breeding appears to be the principal way of improvement and gives good results in terms of resistance to pathogens, active component content, and yield. The agronomical and technological approaches are also very important. By using the agronomical approaches, you can enhance the active component in the material. And technological, what I mean here, the processing part after the harvest. The medicinal plant with this integrated method means plant breeding, agronomical, and the technological approaches. They require extensive research at different level by different organization, individually and in collaboration. To have the molecule, desired molecule from the field, or from the farmers to the chemist shop. The molecule goes from the farmer field to the chemist shop by having those processes which I just mentioned. All these aspects, including biodiversity, conservation, and others pertaining to Himalayan medicinal plants would be highlighted by the speaker, who would be introduced by Dr. Pritam Kalia ji. Questions can be raised in Hindi or English for answering in question answer session after the talk. Now I request my colleague Dr. Pritam Kalia ji to introduce the speaker. Kalia ji, sir.
Most respected organizer, Professor Brahma Singh ji. Today's speaker, Professor Ravinder Raina ji. My colleague, Dr. Shailendra Rajan ji. Viewers, it's indeed a pleasure for me to introduce today's speaker who will be talking on Himalayan medicinal plants for health and happiness. Professor Raina, who is presently serving as a professor in Amity University at Noida, has held different positions at different universities. He has served from scientist to principal scientist and to the head of the department of AICRP on MAPV, medicinal and aromatic plants, in the department of forest products at Dr. Y.S. Parmar University of Horticulture and Forestry, Solon, for almost 27 years. And thereafter, he has also served as professor and head at the university, Shulni University at Solon, for 1 year. And thereafter, he is here at Amity University as professor. Dr. Raina has various areas of his domain for research and teaching, right from botany, economic botany, medicinal plants, tradition knowledge, minor forest products, plant breeding, horticulture, plant biodiversity, conservation, domestication, and genetic improvement, value addition of medicinal plants. So he had wide areas of his research and teaching, and he has been teaching and researching for almost more than 35 years for undergraduate, postgraduate, and doctoral level in the area of medicinal plants, general botany, minor forest products, and horticulture. He has guided 7 PhD students, 6 are still working under him, and 14 MSc students he has guided. Significant research contributions of Dr. Raina are domestication of critically endangered Swartia charaita and Gentiana kuru, and doubling of seed yield in case of Gloriosia sperba by controlled hand pollination. Besides breeding systems operating in critically endangered plants like Swartia charaita, Gentiana kuru, and Nardo stachys grandiflora, endangered plants Picorrhiza, Kuroa, Angelica gluca, Podophyllum hexandrum, Aconitum heterophyllum, and vulnerable plants like Gloriosa superba, Valeriana gentamansi, and Hypericum perforatum, and exotics like Stevia rewardiana. These plants have been unraveled in detail for the first time by Professor Raina. And besides that, Professor Raina has developed package of practices for 5 commercially important endangered medicinal plant species like Gloriosia sperba and Hypericum perforatum and Picorrhiza kuroa. Also, Swartia cherita, and Valeriana jetamansi. First report of chromosome in endangered Phycorrhiza curva and new diploid chromosome number 2 and 78 in critically endangered Nardostachys grandiflora were reported by Professor Raina. Both of these species, in the first case it was diploid number of 34, are much in demand for their medicinal uses and are distributed in temperate Himalayan regions. There are three unique germplasm that Professor Raina has registered with NBPGR in medicinally important plants like Hypericum perforatum, and these are characterized by different methodologies, bioyields, and active content profile. Besides one chemotype genetic stock with more than 4% valipuriate content in Valeriana jetamansi has been registered. He has, besides this, two varieties in case of Lepidium sativum he has developed, and he has to his credit three patents which has been filed, and he has been party to these three. The professional recognition that Professor Raina holds as a member of various national committees like the then Planning Commission during 2007 to 2012 for ornamental, medicinal, and aromatic plants. And he has been member of ICR committees to finalize minimum standards of higher education for establishing a college in SAUs, DUs, CAUs, etc. And he has also been member of DBT task force uh, for basic plant biology, agriculture, and frontier areas. And he has been external expert member for assessment of scientists working in different institutions of ICFRE. Dr. Raina has been Vice President of Medicinal and Aromatic Plants Associations of India. He has been member of faculty selection committee in several universities. Professor Raina has been invited to deliver so many talks of national and international seminars, and also he has served as chairman, co-chairman in national and international symposia seminars. He has been he has membership of various professional bodies, 6 in number, uh, and then he has publication to his credit, uh, 89 peer-reviewed publications, popular articles 42, book chapters 16, abstracts published in national international seminars 59, and he has 3 edited books to his credit. So with that detailed introduction of Dr. Raina, I would not like to stand for a long between the viewers and the speaker. I therefore invite Professor Raina to deliver his talk. The floor is yours, Dr. Raina.
At the outset, let me thank the foundation and the charismatic leader of the foundation, Padma Shri Professor Brahm Singh ji, and his team, Professor Kalia and Professor Rajan, for honoring me by providing me this platform, this very important platform for sharing my small experience of medicinal plants with you and the audience. I profusely thank Dr. Kalia for introducing me very nicely. I think whatever you have said, many of those things I don't deserve. Whatever I have done in my life has all been a contribution of my students, my colleagues, and the circumstances and the institutions where I have served. And when I talk about medicinal plant, coming to the topic, the medicinal plants for me is a passion. It may be a profession, profession which has, I have got professional recognition because of medicinal plant. It's a passion. Why I say this is because whenever we talk about plant usage, if we exclude couple of cereals that we take, a couple of vegetables that we take, couple of fruits that we take, the rest of the plants that we use, whether in form of spices, whether in forms of just add-on flavors, they basically they don't find priority in our mention in our day-to-day life. If we ask anyone in audience that how many plants do you consume on a day-to-day basis, they will not be able to recall more than 10 or 20 species, some few cereal, few vegetable, few fruits. But when you from the moment we get up in the morning till the time we retire in the bed in the evening, uh, the kind of the range of plant that we variously use, whether it's for religious rituals, whether it's for cosmetics, whether it's for any other purpose, wherever we use plants, we use them not for the aesthetics, and we use them for the purposes of their properties, for some usage to give us some benefit. Now, to continue, let me first share my screen. I hope my screen is visible now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I hope
my screen is visible. Yes, the topic that has been assigned to me and the topic which I have opted to deliver is the Himalayan medicinal plants for health and happiness. Why Himalayas? Because I basically come from Himalayan regions. Medicinal plants because this is our way of life. Because we consume medicinal plants as a food, as a supplement, as a nutraceutical, and we consume them in various ways. We apply medicinal plants. We don't not only consume medicinal plants, we also apply medicinal plants. And health and happiness is something which is everyone desires to have a good health and thereby get happiness. Now, I will not take much time on my introductory slides because I know the panel and the audience, everyone knows what are medicinal plants, why we are talking about medicinal, because they're sources of household remedies, traditional system, modern drugs, leads for new drugs, chemical intermediates, traditional system healers, and who uses. If we consider all these range of industries and communities and the agencies, whether it is the Ayurvedic, Siddha, Unani, homeopathy formulations, we talk about proprietary, ethical, and over-the-counter medicines. We talk about herbal cosmetics. We talk about herbal teas, functional foods, nutraceuticals, extracts and chemicals, phytochemicals. We talk about flavors, fragrances, aromatic oils, aromatherapy, incenses. We talk about culinary herbs, spices. We use so many of dhania and pudina in our dishes that they are basically medicinal plants. And then, of course, we must not ignore veterinary herbal products are there also there. So medicinal plants have a very wide usage. And just to run about these statistics, these are the diversity. 50% of the Indian higher flowering plant diversity is constituted by medicinal plants, the plants which are known to have medicinal plants. We cater to about 12% of the global herbal trade. We have several pathies thanks to our diversity, whether it's Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, MG, and modern system. Every system, including the modern medicine, uses plants, of course, in varying numbers. The numbers are here. And whenever we talk about traditional prescriptions, 95% of those traditional prescriptions are plant-based. And 400 plant species are used commercially. We must keep this in mind. And we also must keep this in mind that only about 20 species, when I refer to 20 species, they're all medicinal species. They are grown as crops. Rest of 380 species or more, they are all harvested from the wild resources. And as per this Pharmaxil, Pharmacy Council of India, they have estimated that these medicinal plants provide 35 million work days of employment in a year. Huge employment generation potential. And again, market scenario, because whenever we talk about any aspect, the market cost benefit ratios, they all have are mentioned. So we all need to know where do we stand when it comes to the market scenario, whether the local market or the international market. So currently, world herbal trade is currently assessed at US $120 billion. And the Indian market is about 4.2 billion rupees in 2019. Of course, these are figures for 2019 because this is the latest I could get. And it is expected that by 2026, Indian market, herbal market would be of about 14 billion rupees. And in 2017 and 18, India exported herbs worth 330 US million dollars, which was about a growth rate of 14% over 2016 and 17, the previous year. And in the same year, we exported value-added products of these herbs about 456 million US dollars, which was again an increase of 12% over 2016 and 17. So annual increase is in whether in raw herbs or in value-added products, it is more than 12%, 12 and 14%. And the demand for herbs and their value-added products is gradually increasing in foreign countries, especially in Europe and other developed countries. And this 2017-18 is when Corona had not happened. And we all know what Corona has taught us. Boosting innate immunity. Everybody is talking about immunity. Everybody is talking about prophylactic approach. Everybody is talking about using natural organic ingredients. Now we are finding more and more resonance of people talking about using food as a prophylactic medicine. Food is not now narrated only as a source of energy, but as a prophylactic medicine. Nutrition as a medicine. That is again also being discussed. Plant bioprospecting for antiviral ingredients has tremendously increased throughout the world. Scientific validation of traditional therapies. Many of these traditional therapies do work, but we don't have scientific validation. And now there's more energy, vigor. Now people are investing in scientific validation. Herbal nutrition instead of herbal medicine. Instead of referring to herbal medicine as herbal medicine, now people prefer to use word herbal nutrition. And etc. So many things. And all this is leading us to where is where I am personally involved, that we are concerned with the demand for the botanical, the raw material. The value addition may tell us anything, the products may tell us anything, the international market may tell us anything, but unless and all this value chain will continue, will be sustainable only when the raw materials are sustainably available. And are we ready? This is a question to all of us. Are we ready? Do we have enough of the resources with us? Can we provide it for another 50 years? Can we provide for another generation? The way in our lifetime the demand has increased, the way we are using, and the resource gap. Again, I'm taking the figures of 2014 and 15 because this is the most recent figures, authoritative figures given by National Medicinal Plant Board, that in 2014 and 15, that the domestic industrial consumption of herbal raw material was estimated to be 1,95,000 metric tons. The commercial demand of herbal drugs was 5,12 metric tons. And consumption by rural households was 1,67 and 500 metric tons. Now, when we are talking of metric tons, we are talking about the raw material. And at the same time, NMPB is also saying that only about 22% of the raw botanicals are sourced through cultivation. The rest of the material is coming from wild. And of about 1100 species which are used in trade, 242 species are traded in excess of 100 metric tons per year. Now, these are pan India figures. And the last two lines give us concern that about 80% is coming from wilds. Are our wild areas sustainable enough? Can they keep on providing us for unlimited time and unlimited quantities? And then the middle line is very interesting. The commercial demand was 5,12,000 metric tons, but domestic consumption was only 1,95,000. That means the demand was so much, but the whatever material was made available was much far less than the demand. So that is again the point that one has to keep in mind. And all this is concerning us because we are losing biodiversity. Many species are now classified as rare, endangered, threatened species. Degradation of natural ecosystems is happening. Destructive harvesting is happening, and there's limited regeneration activity, the natural regeneration as well as the cultivation. Now, the top 20 medicinal plants which are traded, these are the top 20, and those I have highlighted in yellow are the ones which occur in Himalayas, the temperate regions. And just since the emphasis of this web seminar is health and happiness, I have just taken one graphics. I have borrowed this graphics from a paper related to Bhutan. We all know Bhutan scores very high as far as the National Happiness Index is concerned. Since here we are also concerned about health and happiness, and look at them, what they are considering the components of gross national happiness: good governance, free healthcare, and source of employment, biodiversity and bioprospecting, preservation of traditional medical culture, conservation of medicinal plants and environment, and socio-economic development. So for gross national happiness, conservation and preservation of traditional knowledge, conservation of medicinal plants is a core essentiality that we all must all have to partner together in helping the situation. Now, coming to the context, the Indian Himalayan region, we know the Himalayan region is that narrow blue band that I have shown in this Indian map. And this region, we all know, there's large altitudinal range varying from 200 to 8,000 meters in altitude. And all sorts of climate conditions are there: tropical, subtropical, temperate, subalpine, alpine, tundra ecosystem. And we have about 1,700 medicinal plants are present there. There are about 120 aromatic plants also there. And rare, endangered, threatened medicinal plants are more than 150 in this region. If we do a SWOT analysis of the Himalaya, what are our strengths? This is important natural source of many high-value temperate and subtropical medicinal plants. It's home to 26 out of top 100 species that are traded in quantities more than 100 tons, like Picrorhiza curva, Aconitum heterophyllum, Suarcha cerata, Sasuria cosus, etc. The central government and the central scheme, there are so many central schemes now being running: Central National Mission on Medicinal Plants, Central Sector Scheme on Medicinal Plants, National Aroma Mission, which encourage private-public partnership in cultivation, processing, and value addition. Several states have emerged as hub of pharma-based industries, including herbal industry, generating regular demand for raw material of medicinal plants. Public institutions like CSR, our university, GB Pant Institute, CSR, IIM, they are extra. They are present there. They are undertaking intensive research. These are our strengths. And what are our weaknesses? The weaknesses are also there: climate change and habitat destruction, which impacts natural distribution and biodiversity. Despite several herbal pharmaceutical industries, there's very poor direct linkage between industry and herbal farmers. That's our biggest weakness. There is no improved variety of important temperate medicinal plants is available necessary for improving productivity. Because whenever we talk about domestication and cultivation, we need improved varieties, just like we need varieties in vegetables or cereals. We need varieties here because ultimately we have to tackle them as a crop. We don't have. There is general lack of value addition processing facilities at local level. People who are engaged to add value to their produce, they have to travel far off distances, and by the time they reach those, most of the potency of the raw material that they have harvested back at their farm is already lost. Then, of course, then we have off-season cash crops like tomato, cabbage, cauliflower. They attract more grower interest due to high and assured market and economic return. So whenever we have to try to convince a farmer, we have to convince them vis-a-vis things like tomato, cabbage, and cauliflower, which is a very difficult task. And unorganized herbal farmers, like agriculture, the herbal farmers are far less, and they are far more unorganized, and there's no cooperative worth the name, and that hampers large-scale cooperation and production of specific herbs. Then opportunities, the unique geographical and climatic conditions which are suitable for growth of several high-demand and endemic herbs like Picroiza, Suzuria, Aconites, Angelica, Nardostachys, Texas, Swarsha. We have that climate, which no other region area in our country can have. Then there are commercially important like Tagetes minuta, Valeriana jetamansi, Swarsha. They can be grown in large tracts, avoiding human-animal conflict. See, recently in the hills, this animal-man conflict has increased tremendously. The monkey menace in Himachal especially, where many of the poor farmers have been forced to give up traditional agriculture because they just cannot control these monkeys. They are destroying their crops. So what to do? Now, there are species like these Tagetes, Valeriana, which have an otherwise good demand, and they are not a favor of those animals, those vermin, those monkeys, that they can be the alternative crops especially in those areas. Then herbal plants can be utilized not only as a drug but also as a nutraceutical, cosmeceutical. So, in fact, when we define medicinal plants, gone are the days when we are defining medicinal plants as those plants which provide us the drugs. Now, medicinal plants are all those plants which provide us both therapeutical as well as a prophylactic advantage. So nutraceuticals, cosmeceuticals, they can be, these herbal plants can find use there. Planned sustainable development of herbal sector can prevent further biodiversity loss as well as promote herbal tourism, diversify agriculture, promote entrepreneurship, etc. Strong in situ cultivation prospects using forest floor. We have lots and lots of forest floor. 66% of our forest geographical area has to be under forest. So how are we using the forest floor? If we can bring in for species, relevant species, we can grow them in their own natural niches, and which will have their natural and they will have natural potency. The threats. Of course, any enterprise has a threat, and we also have threats. We have competition from similar regions from other countries. Nepal is a strong competitor with us. China is a strong competitor with us. Afghanistan is a competitor with us. So we have to remain conscious to that threat. Replacement of herbal ingredients by chemical substitutes. Whenever we are able to identify there's a Taxol, for instance, if it can be synthesized chemically, we will not probably need Taxus baccata. So that can be a threat. So we have to keep that in mind. Biodiversity loss, especially of high in demand endangered medicinal plants due to habitat destruction, climate change, unscientific human intervention. Lot of human activity is happening, which is non-agriculture, which is damaging the habitats, and that the habitats impact the availability of the particular medicinal plants. Then mislabeling, misbranding, adulteration. Rampant misbranding and adulteration is happening in the herbal sector. The things which are claimed on the label of the plant are not present inside the tablet, because either the material is not available, the genuine material is not available, or in to make a fast buck, there are companies, sorry to say, but there are companies who are indulging in these malpractices. Then, of course, lack of scientific validation. For many of our traditional therapies, the scientific validation in the modern context is just simply unavailable. Now, in the Himalayas, these are some of the species which we are trading in more than 100 tons a year. Now, this data can be interpreted in both ways, in a happiness way and as a concern way. The happiness would be when there is so much of demand, and this is their home is the Himalayan region. So that means that I have a lot of strength. My biodiversity is in demand. People need it. And this demand is not only national, it is international. But then the concern also gets that so much of material, raw material is being extracted every year from Himalayas, slowly and gradually, which is leading to the depletion of the resource. Because there is no corresponding effort to redeem the loss. So this can be interpreted in both ways depending upon what we are arguing. It can be a positive happiness indicator also, but it can be a concern also. Mostly it's a concern nowadays. There are lots of issues in sustainability. We have ecological threats, we have economic threats, we have inherent threats. What do I mean by inherent threat is that many of the plants are threatened or have become endangered, not because of unscientific harvesting, not because of habitat destruction, but because their biologies are so such. They are naturally endemic. They have reproductive barriers. They have natural low seed set, due to which they are not proliferating. Because earlier we didn't know these factors. We would always face criticism from Western societies that whenever there would be a talk about biodiversity loss, we would receive a criticism that the Indian traditional system, because it is plant-based, is responsible for biodiversity loss because the most of the raw material is coming from the wild areas. Up to the time we have no answer, everyone would be defensive. But then studies have now shown that there are many species like Nardostachys, Jatamansi, for instance, where the endemism or endangerment is mostly due to the reproductive barriers in the species. So when we know that, then our strategy to manage that situation is totally different from the strategy when we have to manage illegal harvesting, unscientific harvesting. So our strategy approach has to be totally different. Then asexual multiplication and cultivation. Many of the species which have found a place in cultivation in hills, like for instance Valerina jatamansi, like for instance Asoria lapa, like for instance again Nardostachys jatamansi, because it is easier to multiply vegetatively. The seed propagation takes some time. They are multiplying it through vegetatively, and when they are multiplying it vegetatively, it is causing same genome to be multiplied over and over and over. The seed is just not a part of the cultivation cycle. When we don't have seed as a part of the cultivation cycle, the variability, the natural variability, which is essential to withstand climate change or other ecological and edaphic factors, is simply not missing. So with the result, the more we go for asexual multiplication, the increased would be the vulnerability of our crops. And this is what is happening in Nardostachys especially. Then there is cross-border illegal trade. There are some species in this Nepal, Pakistan, Bhutan, India belt that so many of the species which are Indian are being surreptitiously smuggled out and traded elsewhere. And then the people, inadequately trained stakeholders in GCAP. GCAP means good collection and agriculture practice. So most of the people who are actually deal with the raw material at the ground level, they don't know how to harvest. They don't know when to harvest. They don't know what to harvest. So with the result, if they have to harvest leaves, they would uproot the entire plant. If they have to harvest roots, they will harvest it before the seed is set, leaving nothing behind for the plant to regrow. So again, that's another concern, another issue. Genetic improvement, as I earlier said, we have heard lots about porphyrin, aconites, picrorhiza, swarcha, suri. Decades and decades of funds and investments and public and private interest has gone into these species. not a single variety worth the name is available. We are talking about cultivating them. What will we cultivate when we don't have an elite strain which can offset many of the ecological and the edaphic condition that these species need to overcome. Now, when we talk about cultivation, I always said that cultivation in medicinal plants, we have to divide them into two parts: so cultivation for profit and cultivation for sustainable harvest. When it comes to profit, things like all of us are aware that Isabgol is an example of cultivation for profit. Isabgol, Gujarat has done very well in Isabgol. So that's a sole crop where everything has fallen in place and people are making profit, and it can provide profit being grown as a sole crop. So identify the species which can be cultivated for profit. Then most of the species, it is the sustainable harvest that is important. Even if there is a cultivation, the cultivation is not that remunerative. The farmers are finding it very difficult to sustain their inputs, to sustain their interest and recover their inputs. So, but at the same time, there is demand. So, cultivation for sustainable harvest, if we have to do this, then we will look more and more to using forest floor for providing the sustainable harvest. So, when it is cultivation for profit, then we have to develop package of practices, and this is one effort. But similar efforts are taking place elsewhere also, where these package of practices of growing some of these species, this book which we have authored lists about 35 species of Himalayas where they can be profitably grown. And when we talk about cultivation of sustainable harvest, using the forest floor would be the ideal situation, because forest floor provides us many advantages. Natural niche, the land is comes cheap, the produce is truly organic, and because many species are required in small quantities, we don't require every species in equal quantity. And then if we give an example of Himachal Pradesh, this is the geographical area and this is the forest area. And if we use only 5% of the forest area of the medicine plant, we have about 1 lakh hectares of land can be made available. And in this direction, the Forest Department of Himachal Pradesh already started. Some species of Picrorhiza, species like Picrorhiza, Nardostachys jatamesis, they have already started growing on the forest floor. So there's a paradigm shift. Earlier we used to talk about in situ conservation, but now we have to find more resonance with in situ cultivation. Now, when we talk about the examples of the medicinal plants from the Himalayan region, the well-known we all know, because whenever we talk about medicinal plants from the Himalayas, we get sometimes we don't have enough good example to highlight. But no, we are ignoring many sometimes. Crocus typhus saffron is a very well-known medicinal plant of Himalayas. We all know Kashmir and some areas of Himachal and Uttaranchal is being introduced now. This is the most costliest spice, and it's a success story. I will not talk much about it, but just to highlight, so whenever we have to talk about medicinal plants from Himalayas, there are some examples which are very well established. They are so well established that in the general narrative, general discussion, we don't refer to them. Rhododendrons, very well established rhodosucash, which is available in market. A beautiful tree which has an ecological, ornamental, and a medicinal significance. Already the produce is available in market. Again, I will not talk about. And besides this, we have things like sea buckthorn, say, for instance, well established. It is not getting commercialized the way as per its potential. That is a separate thing. But they are already there, well established. We don't. You only have to put few things in together, and they are success. They would be successful commercial thing. But when we are talking about the Himalayas, the most talked about, we are talking about those plants which where the demand is not that prevalent. it is materially the raw material is not available in significant quantities, but the demand is so high because of certain specific attributes that they have. Like for instance, Suvarsha chireta, this is a critically endangered species. And whatever I be using critically endangered or endangered, this is all as per IUCN standards. And this Varsha chiraita, the active quantity in this species is amarogentin. And this amarogentin is the most bitterest compound, natural compound known so far in the entire plant world. And that compound is present only in Suvarsha chireta, and another species, Suvarsha japonica, which is present in Japan. It's not present in this part of the world. And the whole plant is so bitter. Even a 2 millimeter piece of this plant, if one tastes, the whole mouth goes bitter for several hours. But it is so effective as an enthalmenting, hypoglycemic, and antipyretic and blood purifier. This is one of the most 10 most sought after plant of the Ayurveda. And this is government of India is providing 75% subsidy on this plant to grow it. 75% of subsidy to grow this plant to people. But the problem was the plants are not available. The seed is not available. What to grow, how to grow, when to grow. But we have spent quite more than a decade on this species, and now from a situation where we could not locate a single plant of this plant in entire Himachal Pradesh and many parts of Uttaranchal. Now somehow we were lucky, we could get some plants and we could get some seeds, and then now we have perfected the technology, how to grow them, when to grow them, how to raise their nursery, and how to manage them in the field, that now we are in a position to provide it to the farmers, and the farmers have slowly and gradually developed interest, and they are taking up its cultivation. This is one of our prime success story, where from zero to virtually we are now in a situation where in another 10 years probably we can see it proliferating as a very well established crop. This is some activity that we have done. And as far as amarogentin content, it has the entire plant is bitter. The leaves as well as the leaves and amarogentin and amarosverin are the two important compounds, and they are present in leaves. Is a diagram. This is a graphics of the leaves. How does this change dynamic as per the growth and development the conditions are concerned? But this amarogentin and amarosverin, it's valuable. The medicinal property of this is because of this. And other than medicinal property, the European beers, especially the German beers, the bitterness of their beers is because of amarogentin. So they prepare these medicated drinks. The bitterness is by this amarogentin. So there's a worldwide demand. We have done some work. I will not go into. This is another species, Valeriana jetamansi. Now, this Valeriana jetamansi is again an Himalayan plant, and the rhizomes, they smell they have a very foul emitting smell, the rhizomes, and they are used as tranquilizers, sedative, analgesic, antipyretic. It has antibacterial, and it has mild CNS depressant activities. The active content here is valipotrates, which are present in rhizomes and roots. And its value is because of that. And many of the areas from up to 1300 to 3800 altitude, we can found. It's very abundant in Shimla, but the active content is not much there. But if we go towards Kufri and Chair, and then on the Chamba side, we have a different range of these valipotrate contents present. And we have done some work. I will not go into much because it has two kinds of plants, and the two kinds of plants, they vary as far as their valipotrates are concerned. This is how we have raised this nursery, perfected its cultivation, and we have perfected its package of practice also. and we are providing the seeds and the raw material and the planting material. And again, this has started growing well. And again, government of India is providing 50% subsidy on this plant for growing it. Those of the people who are interested, they can. I will be talking about that in detail at the end. And this is how we have done it. Some studies, and we have developed a unique germplasm which gives more than 4% value portrait, and this is now registered with the NBPGR. We cannot have a plant patent in India, as you know, and this is the best one can have it. Having the national germplasm with a number. And Picrorhiza, endemic to Himalayas, and a panacea for treating diseases like jaundice, hepatoprotective, antiperiodic and cardiotonic drug, but is mostly valued as a hepatoprotective. Leaf 52, many of you must have heard about Leaf 52, and this is an important ingredient of Leaf 52. And this is a plant because it occurs only in the Himalayas. Nowhere else in the world it occurs, and that is why Government of India has put it under negative list of exports. Through legal means, through legal channels, its raw material or its products cannot be exported outside the India. To grow it, Government of India is providing 75% of subsidy to grow it, the input cost, because there is so much of material demand from different industries, from different herbal industries for this plant. And again, we have done some works here, which are quite useful for guiding people how to grow it, how to manage it. Some of the works I will not go to. And this Picroside 2 and Picroside 1 are important chemical compounds. And we have scanned about 30 populations of Himachal and Uttaranchal. And the Picroside 1 and 2 are present in both rhizomes and roots. And we have analyze all these populations for the dynamics of the active content, and now we know which natural population has more picroside and more picroside 1. And Janshana, again a critically endangered species. Taraiman in Ayurveda, it's known as a critically endangered. Again, when we started working on this, the plants were available in only one location in Himachal Pradesh. And the challenge was to domesticate it, study its simple seed biology. We didn't even know how to grow its seed, how to germinate, how the seed will germinate, when will it grow, how much time will it take, what would be the transplanting, which would be the areas where we can grow it. And again, it has a lot of anti-stomachic, enthalmenting, blood purifier. Gensho-picroside is the active content present here. And you refer to any Ayurvedic manuscript. This is at the preeminent position in that. But again, the raw material was not coming. Raw material is still not coming because our domestication efforts have succeeded, but the domestication efforts have not gone on commercial scale because it's a very excruciatingly slow growing species. Our studies indicated that on the estimated basis that when we grow it, we could not grow more than 80. We could not get more than 80 kgs of dry root yield per acre. Too low a product, too low in productivity. But then because it's a very slow growing. But then medicinality is very important. Yes, how to grow it and how to speed up its process. That is a challenge that we are thinking of studying for future. This is how we develop this technology. We have the material with us. But people are not coming because it has excruciatingly slow growth. And because of slow growth, people aren't coming forward. But then we have perfected technology. We know that we have the now material with us. We can provide it to anyone who can be of interest. There's some studies. Hypericum perforatum, antidepressant plant because of the presence of hypersin. And this has a preeminence in the European and the USA because depression is a very common feature there. And St. John, they call it St. John's wort. And again, earlier there was not much of an activity as far as this plant was concerned, but then now there are many companies who have come. Schwab, German, for instance, have set up a unit in Himachal Pradesh, and they are looking for this raw material. And this raw material, again, the package of practices had to be perfected, which we have done. And while we were doing, it was very interesting to note that Hypericum perforatum, there are these black spots on the petal margins and the leaf margins and the stigma margin. And we were curious, what are these? And we ultimately found that these are the seeds of accumulation of hypericin. The glands, it's in these black spotted spots, these glands, that hypericin gets accumulated. So we thought, just by counting the number of glands and their gland size, one can get an idea about the how much of a concentration of hypericin is present. Just without analyzing, one can get a rough idea. And then we could find there were some morphotypes we were able to find, and they were stable morphotypes. And then we could register them as independent stable morphotypes. And all those morphotypes, the three morphotypes, based on the leaf size and the leaf shape especially, they have different biological yields and with varying hypericin contents. We initially called it as morphotype 1, 2, and 3, and later on we have now been provided with the numbers, INGR numbers, and they are with us, and some studies that we have made. Podophyllum hexandrum, a very well-known plant for its anti-cancerous properties, especially because of the presence of podophyllatoxin in its rhizomes. And well known, but the challenge with podophyllatoxin again has been, and it still is, that it does not germinate the way it does produce seed very properly, but the seed shows erratic germination. Many groups have worked on that aspect. We have also worked on that aspect, but there's no conclusion, no final word has not been said that what are the best conditions under which the podophyllum seed will germinate. Hello? That we have got, and it has podophyllatoxin. Nardostachys grandiflora, another critically endangered species about which I was talking earlier. Not much of an information was available, and we have now lots of insight into this species, and we are now in a better position to advise people in its domestication and cultivation. And there's some first time leads that we have got, and because of this we can now say how it has got endemic and what are the situations by which we can bring it into cultivation. Angelica glauca, another important aromatic plant which has which is used as a very good spice, Himalayan spice, and we have studied, our studies have shown that the seed germination is a problem, and people were undertaking different strategies, but we have found the seed comes without embryo. So any of study hormone treatments and other things will all go waste, will have no meaning. So what we now know that which is this type of the inflorescence which gives us the best seed, which will germinate and which not, and that has made the job of the people who are growing Angelica glauca much easier, because now we tell them which seed to collect, which harvest, and when to grow it. Aconites, again, there are two types of Aconitum heterophyllum on the base of color that we have found, and there is an rapid has also segregated into a separate group. And then Aconitum normally comes with 2 tubers. Now we have some strains which give us more than 2 tubers, and these are helpful in improving the productivity of Aconitum, improving the productivity of Aconitum. Gloriosa superba, another important, it's already a commercial plant of Tamil Nadu, but it grows very well in Himachal also. And the biggest challenge with this was increasing the seed yield. And because the seed is the source of colchicine, which is used in polyploidy, but mostly for treating gout. And this seed, which we found by controlled pollination, we could increase the seed set. We could increase the seed set and almost 600 or more than double. We have been able to double the seed yield, and now this was taken claimed as a research breakthrough by ICAR at one point of time when we did this work. And Tamil Nadu, where this is being commercially grown, they have already adopted this technology, because earlier it was the roots which were being destructively harvested. Because the roots also have colchicine, but that would mean after uprooting the plant, we had to wait for another 3 or 4 years till the new crop would mature. But the seed gives us annual harvest, and but the seed production was a challenge. Now we have succeeded. Now people have given up harvesting the root. Now they are harvesting only the seed, and with the technology and the inputs that we have provided. Mucuna, this is an L-DOPA, source of L-DOPA, which is useful for treating Parkinson's disease. And this is on the left side, this is the Mucuna purulens, which is generally available, and it has itching pods. And this itching pod, due to which it becomes very difficult to handle these pods. The farmers are not growing it, people are not collecting it. But then we have found this non-itching type also, which, of course, when it comes to L-DOPA, the L-DOPA yield is less. But then it can be grown, it can be managed very well, because it does not have that non-itching pods on it. Exotics, stevia, for instance, has found much place in stevia in our cultivation industry, because this is a non-calorie sweetener. And many areas in the sub-temperate regions, they have started growing it. And we have also we have done some work on this. And this is important because of 2 compounds, stevoside and rhabdoside. And stevoside is about 150 times sweeter than sucrose. And this riboside is about 350 to 400 times sweeter than sucrose. And we did some crossings, and we had raised F2 population here, and we have found the range in the stevoside content and the rhabdoside content. The beauty of this plant is it can be vegetatively grown also. So the best types can be grown and are being grown. And the people where the stevia seedlings were distributed. And then there's another important exotic about which not much work has been done in this part of the country, in our country. But this is already one of the top most species which is in use in Europe, and Germany, Switzerland, Netherlands, Italy, Spain are major producers. And climatic condition in the sub-temperate region of Himalayas are very appropriate for growing this. The importance of this plant is that this is one of the very few plants which has proven antiviral compounds present. Because traditionally it has also been used for cold, colic, headache, stomach cramp, cough, toothaches, rabies, etc. And the active content that is important here is the chicoic acid. The chicoic acid is a marker as it has immune stimulatory effects. In modern herbal medicine, commonly employed for treating upper respiratory infections, particularly viral infections such as colds and influenza. There are already products like Super Echinacea 350, Echinacea acerola, 3 Echinacea complex, and Nature Answer. They are already available in market. So what we now need to do is expand on echinacea, because there's already a market. And when there's a market, there's a pool of raw material is already there. And because so far either the drugs are coming from outside, or the raw material is being getting imported. So this is another prospective species which is already finding a resonance in the local cultivation scheme. This is what we have done. It's already, it can be grown very easily. Tacitus minuta, again an South American plant, but it is considerably naturalized in Himalayan regions, and because of the Tacitus oil. In fact, CSIR, IHPT, they have included it in their aroma mission. They are spreading Tacitus in not only in the Western Himalayas, but also in the Northeast region, because it's very easy to grow. And this oil has antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, and most importantly, it has nematicidal activity. So the oil not only is essential oil, not only finds use as a perfume, but also as for improving the soil condition, especially controlling the nematicidal activity. And this is there are Z beta osamine, dihydrotagetone, and several others, which are the important compounds of Tacitus oil. So far, India is still importing Tacitus oil because the demand is so, the local production is not enough, and it's being imported. So there's a lot of scope. That is why CSR is included in this aroma mission to increase the spread of aroma plants like Tacitus minuta. And also, as I was referring earlier, it is a plant which can provide an alternative form of agriculture to those regions which are suffering from man-human conflict. Yes, this is the spread, and we have analyzed the entire diversity. We have already some accessions we have identified for high oil yield and biomass yield. And these all accessions, these were collected by us. And the important thing is, this is an exotic weed, but now this has naturalized in 9 out of 12 districts of Himachal Pradesh. And we could get its material seeds and from 9 districts of Himachal Pradesh, and we have all surveyed the entire area, and we have the diversity, and now we know which accession, we have characterized the accession on the basis of high productivity. This is some pictures. The government initiatives, before I talk about what the government is doing, there are some things which we all as a society, we need to force our governments to do. That we need to mainstream Indian system of medicine in India. Indian system of medicine components should be included in formal medical education programs. The sourcing of raw material of herbs is a very live issue. Investments in herbal industry are low as volume scales are not achieved. Data on internal market of herbals is scanty, needing frequent update. And there's a need of synergy because we are being governed by different laws, FSSAI, and drugs and cosmetic regulations, because some components figure under FSSAI and some under drugs and cosmetics regulation. So they need to have more synergy between these two, because as certain herbs both can have wellness as well as a drug value. Almost absence of value chain in herbals, from non-timber forest product collection to cultivation to export. A value chain, well-established value chain needs to be there. Harmonized system. See, whenever we export, exports take place under not individual names, but under harmonized codes, HS codes, what they call. Now, in the accepting for like sandalwood has a separate HS code. There are some species which have same HS code, different HS code, but most of the herbs don't have independent HS codes. There are about thousands of exported plant species. They are exported under a single HS code. So we don't know which species is going where and in what quantity. And there's also need to classify herbs into Ayurvedic, nutraceutical, dietary supplements, etc., with independent HS codes. This is important to meet importing country norms. Then we also have to address the doubtful recognition of Ayurvedic system of medicine in other countries. Because whenever we are pitching Ayurveda as having potential for exports and earning revenue, then the importing countries have become now more strict in assessing what we are exporting. So they have developed their own guidelines. So whenever we are exporting, we should export as per the requirements of the importing country, not as per what I have. So an attitudinal change needs to be done. Pharmacovigilance is absent in herbal drugs. Yes, we need to have that. And we need to have a single platform, DBT, DST, ICR, ICFRE, ICMR, AYUSH, NMBB, so many agencies working sometimes at the crossroads. So we need a single window system where we can get all those things addressed. Now, the recent initiative, this is a wonderful app developed by National Medicinal Plant Board, and those who are the stakeholders, they should download this app, because this app gives you a lot of flexibility, lot of facilities for assessing the market, knowing the sellers, knowing the buyers, and one can trade, one can sell, one can buy. And it gives you real-time market value. After every probably the market value gets updated periodically after every month. So this is the most wonderful thing what has happened in the last couple of years, and everyone should have this e-Charak. It's an app, can be downloaded for Google, and it's developed by NMPB. Then the NMPB has also set up 7 regional centers in different regions of the country, like we have in the north, and they are boosting farmers' farming activity, and synergizing and networking with the industries. Then guidelines have been developed for voluntary certification of raw material, for GAP and good field collection practices. We now have guidelines. We know people can go for voluntary certification for organic certification or adherence to GAP. Now we have that system in place. And then the incentive for cultivation. So there are 3 types of incentive. The species have been identified, divided on the basis of the quantum and the ease and the difficulty of the cultivation. Like we have 55 species where the government is providing 30% subsidy. There are 27 species where the government is providing 50% subsidy. And there are 13 species where government is providing 75% subsidy on growing them. Most of the plants which we grow in Himalayas, like Aconitum, Nardostachys, Susuria, Swarsha cerata, Picrorhiza, Aconitum, Berberis, Podophyllum, and including Santalum, 75% of subsidies provided by the government. So the people should take this advantage, avail this opportunity. And this is some expected returns, the productivity, economic yield, because this is one people do ask how much we can expect, like Chirata, how much of the yield we can have. Of course, it's after the full growing cycle. And the current rate, this is the June 2021 rate, it provides the June 21 rate is 350 rupees kg. Likewise, there are so many species where the current prices are listed. And one can only calculate how much of a revenue returns one can get when to get if one seriously undertakes cultivating or trading in any of these species. The private initiatives, there's an organization in Human India in Uttaranchal, and they have done considerably well in growing medicinal plants. Just to share, because the government initiatives are there, the private initiative is also coming up very vigorously, because people are finding employment, people are finding resonance with nature, people are finding employment staying at their own places. They don't have to leave their own places. Jatamansi, rosemary, the trainings, organic products, many of the local products now are getting value added at the locally, and then wild processing, then some of the drugs and the products that they have developed. This is one issue which I would like to highlight, but there are many more like this. And when I talk about conclusion, now there's no conclusion to my talk. It's a challenge. And because the challenge, because if medicine Himalayan plants have to continue to provide health and happiness, we have to consider them in sound ecological management that also has economic benefits, that also provides economic benefits. These are all things, but we need to emphasize on them. And our approach to conserve and utilize biodiversity should be targeted at different levels, from improving living standards to changing the attitude of people. And this is what is required, changing the attitude of people. And when it comes to what should we do, what should be the take home message, these are some of the species that one can think of to start actually trading, cultivating these plants, because technologies are in place, the market is there, and there are people who can guide them in the initial, who can even handhold them. These are some of the species one can start with, because we always say, whenever if somebody has to start building the value chain from the production to the product, focus on the production part. And which production, when we are talking about thousands of medicine plant, which plant one should start with. So these are the species. These can be the take-home message. Yeah, these are the species one can think. We can have a one-to-one discussion on individual species basis also. So these are my acknowledgements. Of course, my institutions: Amity University, Dr. Y.S. Parmar University of Horticulture, and Shiv University of Biotechnology, where I have served. And I have been my work has been funded by Department of Biotechnology and ICAR, National Medicinal Plant Board, ICFRE, Himachal Pradesh State Government. And I have had a research collaboration with DMA, PR, ISPT, Delhi University, GB Fund, Human India. And of course, I would like to acknowledge my students and faculty colleagues. And this is thanks for your patient hearing.
Wonderful talk by Dr. Raina. Raina ji, you can relax and just listen what the moderators have to add to your presentation.
Okay, so can I unshare?
No, you continue.
No. You can stop. You can stop the screen share.
Stop sharing only.
Yes,
Stop sharing.
Yeah. That's what.
Stop sharing. Dr. Rajan, sir.
So you are
sir,
not
please,
audible.
Rajan sir, please unmute your mic, sir.
So, respected Dr. Brahma Singh Saab, thanks for inviting me as a moderator. But I would say that this is one of the wonderful talks on the by Dr. Ravinder Raina Saab on the herbal plants and the medicinal plants. Particularly, most of us don't know that much up to that much extent, and it has made it very, very interesting and informative. Not only in a way that the time was limited, but a lot many things have been told by him. He has already said that now the herbal products are very much linked with our livelihood of the people in the areas which are very difficult. Difficult areas are better for the cultivation, and already he has mentioned how the raw herbs and the value-added products both are important. We are mostly depending on the export of the raw herbs, and he has already said the herbal medicines versus herbal nutrition, that is important. Now we have to differentiate about both of them, and already as per his estimates, about 22% of the raw material is only cultivated. That is somewhat a story which has to be now it has to be refaced. And excessive use the reason why 80% is only from the wild. The wild material is being utilized in this sector, and it is a growing sector, as already mentioned by him. Due to corona, and the immunity boosters are becoming important. The rare and endangered species are there, but most of those are liked by people, and those are people are hunting for that. We also have we had example of the Bhutan, where he has given the how happiness is related with the conservation of the this our herbal plants and medicine plants. We could know the strength and weaknesses, about this industry, because lot much was dealt in a very simple and specific way, and we should say no. We could know that the importance of varieties also has place here, and package of practices, and many of the production technology he has indicated in his talk, and the therapeutics value of these most of these herbs, I should say herbs, those are to be validated. The industry is growing, pharma industry is growing, and validation is coming also in the this way. And definitely he has already indicated about the threats, and particularly the threats are related with our neighboring countries, and the countries which are in particular specific environment, those are most important as far as threats are concerned. And he already mentioned that lack of validation is one of the bottlenecks for commercialization by India in a greater way. So we could learn about the ins and outs of the herbal industry, particularly related to the medicinal plants, and uh, we could also know about the how the raw material exploitation is taking place, and what are the issues related with the sustainability. Because sustainability is an important issue which he has already mentioned, but a very good term has come up, like good collection agriculture practices. We could see we had good agriculture practices, we had good conservation practices, we had good diversity conservation practices, but this is good collection agriculture practices. These are very important, and I should say the in situ conservation is important, and the in situ cultivation is also linked with it. If in situ conservation is important, the cultivation will automatically come up. Both are interlinked, and if both are coming up hand in hand, definitely this industry will be benefited. The conservation will ultimately take place, because the people who are involved in situ conservation or cultivation, they will take care of it. He has given beautiful example of saffron, which has traveled from different parts of the world to Kashmir to then Uttarakhand, Uttaranchal. I will remind him that it was started in 1970, 65. In 60s, it was started in Uttarakhand very successfully. It was cultivated. You can see some of the publication, but afterward it was not continued there. So again, rhododendron, it is being exploited by people. It has lot of value, particularly for the bioactive compounds. It is important. So these were some beautiful examples. Sea buckthorn, already Dr. Brahm Singh is authority. We have already learned about these plants and its evaluated products in many of the lecture in this series. Then the very important thing is that how the most important is the multiplication. Multiplication, because these species are endangered. The seeds are not coming up. The germination is a problem. How to perpetuate the seed science of the rare herbal plants, that has been indicated by him, and some of the glaring example how those can be multiplied by pollinating it. Artificial pollination, it is also has important, and he has revealed how the conservation strategy will based on that. The importance of the value chain cannot be overlooked, particularly for the medicinal plants, and the entire value chain is important, and that will lead to the conservation also. The export scenario and the requirements by different countries, that has already indicated by him, and wonderful explanation of the e-charak, the app which is coming up, which is making most of the thing economical viable, economically viable. This industry will be, and that the economics which is involved in one of the slides beautifully presented by him. These are some of the most important parts of the presentation which he made. This is a long experience, a lifelong experience, which indicates how diverse were the steps, how different directions, multidimensional. So these are the things which I wanted to share. Thank you very much, Dr. Raina Saab. We could learn a lot of things from out of your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rana, for miniaturizing a 60 minutes long talk nicely. Can I request Dr. Pritam Kalia ji? He would like to add something briefly.
Yes, sir. I think we must give a big applause to Dr. Raina for giving a very wonderful talk, very exhaustive talk from uh, start to end. He has not left anything which is missing from the talk, all aspects. And it's beautiful that from the farmer's point of view, the first point is how to grow crop, what is the agronomy of the crop. That part they have handled, because other things could not have been done had the agronomy not worked in the initial instances. So the package of practices he has shown that has been developed must have brought many farmers to fore to go ahead with the cultivation of some of these medicinal plants, which has already taken place. And from the other angle, I think from my point of view, because these are medicinal plants, and he has already mentioned that there are a lot of aspects from bioactive compounds point of view which are suitable for pharmaceutical industry, for cosmetic industry, for nutraceutical industry. All these industries, especially nutraceutical industry, which is the people, as the education standard in the country, literacy level has increased, people want to manage their health through diet. And through diet means through the nutraceutical, they want to go ahead. But the nutraceutical industry in our country is at infancy, and that has to be mainly based upon medicinal plants. Of course, other plants can also be equipped with various compounds and made suitable for cultivation. And the private, the industry linkage that he has already mentioned, which is important aspect, which is weak at the moment, because of the reason that he has mentioned, that we do not have very improved varieties in this sector presently. It's only from the wild that they have collected material, which has been perfected from agronomy point of view, but lot needs to be done to upscale the industry in this sector, and bring out a lot of variability in those plants where there is no variability. We have to think of various improvement technology which are available with us, and the new generation who can look from the presentation that we have had. Many students and scientists must be hearing it, and it's an opportunity for them to go ahead to take up this medicinal plants study as their researchable area. And a lot of opportunities are available from funding agencies also. They will be happy to give so many projects to work on the future aspects of identifying many bioactive compounds, as Dr. Raina has mentioned, amarogentin and amarosarin in some of the crops, but in all other plants we need to identify. We are not aware of what are other compounds available. So the breeders, the geneticists can further look into the reproductive biology that they have already worked upon, but it needs further studies to bring out new improved varieties, and the bioactive compounds based new accessions can be developed, which can be further used as varieties for extraction. So they would be helping ultimately, because that is the base to further upscale the industry and nutrients and nutraceuticals point of view. So that aspects needs to be seen, and I think this presentation is eye opener for very many new scientists who can take up this profession and go ahead with developing new varieties with improved bioactive compounds, nutraceuticals, and other nutrient compounds, linking with these studies from nutrition point of view. So with that, I think it's a tremendous job that Professor Raina has done, and also made us know about so many plants which we were not aware of. So I thank him profusely, and I think the entire viewers might have been benefited. So thank you very much, Professor Raina, for a nice talk.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kalia. Mr. Shiv, missing. Mr. Shiv is missing. Very good.
Sir, I'm here.
So the questions, where are the questions?
Sir, Tikku sir is saying something, sir, on the screen.
Something important hoga. Excellent presentation, Dr. Raina. There is obviously huge scope in having crop improvement. You see, these breeders won't spare you. Kalia also and Tikku also. Both of you will lay emphasis on breeding the high biomolecule yielding varieties of different medical plants. medicinal plants. अच्छा, अरे क्यों बंद कर रहा है भाई, पढ़ने दे. Plants, and there needs to be the policy support to make cultivation more organized rather than dependent on wildlife. Very good observation. This National Medicinal Plant Board has come up only for that. We are not totally now depending on forest floor, but forest floor will always be important. But we have taken now certain, as he has clearly mentioned, 20 plants. I think more than 20 now, by National Medicinal Plant Board, and they are multiplying as any other crop. Would you like to add something, Dr. Raina, to it? To Dr. Tikku's observation?
Sir,
Oh,
I have spoken it of many platforms, and I'm repeating what I have said many times. That first and foremost thing, should be a separate program from the Himalayan medicinal plants. Number one, because whenever we get integrated with all other regions of the country, we lose the race when we have to compete with regions which grow isabgol, sena, and all those things. That is my point number one. Because number one, number two, the species that have been shortlisted for domestication and cultivation, there has to be a strong push on developing varieties. There's no strong push for developing varieties because, as a breeder, we know it takes some time. They have to have patience with us. I know I have shortlisted certain germplasm and how much time it has taken. So they have to invest, they have to trust the breeder, and breeders will definitely deliver. Some of the leads which we have, like a Nado snake Jetamansi, I have already submitted a project. Probably it's at a very advanced stage of getting funded by NMPB, and this is all on the basis of leads that I have got in my 30 years of experience. People like me, there are some people who have worked on breeding aspects of medicinal plants up the Himalayas. It's very difficult to work on a species like, say, podophyllum. The podophyllum, I don't know, many of you might not, the audience might not be knowing, this podophyllum, one plant of podophyllum produces only one single flower per season. One flower per plant. And you can very well understand how much of a challenge it is to the breeder to undertake the conventional breeding procedure when you have only one flower and you have to wait for the next year to repeat the experiment. But then this is we have, but even despite that situation, we have come out with some very interesting information. The time is short, otherwise I could have revealed the strong very important and just another cycle of 3 or 5 years work would shortlist many varieties in portfolio. But
oh
we
yes,
don't have a
good. Yes, breeding is time taking here.
Yes.
Any other question? That Tikku Saab must be knowing, but he is simply asking us that whether we also know it or not. We also know, sir. You also know it.
Yes, sir.
Any other question, Mr. Shiv?
CP Khare sir, he saying something.
Khare Saab is a very senior person, and he is running a New Age Herbal Society for I don't know how many decades. I'm also part of that. Salute to him, and I'm obliged that he is attending the webinar on medicinal plant. His suggestion is that the medicinal plant board and CCRAS, Ayurveda, this research, there are different research councils of this our so-called ministry in this Ayush. In the Ayush, there are a number of them. So his suggestion is that those people should also attend. Anyway, we had sent the invitation to all. Let us hope next time we will further make efforts. Then Tikku Saab is over. Next, my other question. Acha, is there systematic efforts going on to test the WhatsApp university distributed therapies many of the forward seen very sensible that should not should not be there be research and registration of all that what is useful. If you could read, Dr. Raina, kindly answer. If you could read it.
Yes, sir. Dr. Tikku is asking for, is there systematic effort going on to test the WhatsApp University distributed therapies? I mean, we can laugh on that comment because I cannot at least offer any comment on that because we all know WhatsApp industry, WhatsApp university, what it says. But then, sir, the second part of this question, many of the forwards seem very sensible, but shouldn't there be research and registration of all that what is useful? Sir, in our country, we already have TKDL, which is supposed to record each and every traditional aspect, traditional therapy, but TKDL is not available open to us. It is only open to outside India, to different countries, to their patent officers. So if there is a patent application which has an Indian component, so they can have an idea whether this is in public domain or not. So there is an
Uh,
effort. Implementation is already taking
okay,
place.
okay, Dr. Raina, both of you are good friends. You can have a discussion at whenever you have got the free time, both of you in detail. Now here we have got a time constraint. Any other question, Mr. Shiv?
No, we don't have some. All the appreciations messages are there.
Good, good. All appreciation for Dr. Raina. Wonderful talk. I'm also joining the band. Excellent, excellent,
Thank
excellent
you, sir.
talk. Uh,
I'm
uh,
I'm I'm
the,
I'm humbled. I am humbled.
See, we are going to make you further humble. The Dr. Raina excellently given the SWOT analysis of Himalayan medicinal plant, the strength, the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. He has nicely narrated that, making a lot of sense. Most of the things have been covered in that, and then uh, he has highlighted the importance of the very high trade in medicinal plants. They are important. And as Dr. Rajan rightly pointed out, that he has given the good collection practices. Because I think more than half, or I think three-fourth of the trade is from the forest floor, where we are only collecting, not cultivating. And we are laying emphasis only on good agricultural practices. So only on 20% or 30% or so. But what about the rest? Yes, you have rightly pointed out that the good collection practices are to be developed. I think forest people can make note of it, because if some other agency develops for them, they are not going to accept it. They themselves have to develop it. And the forest floor, see, when we deal with medicinal plant, you can't ignore the forest floor. And we will not be able to ignore it because the large number of medicinal plants are coming from there, and we are there in the wild, and they are also happy there, and we are also happy we get good material from there. The only thing, we should have the appropriate policy, though policies are there on medicinal plant, but further taking everything into account, the forest and the cultivation and their uses and processing, value addition, and the thing which Dr. Rena and others pointed out, the undesirable activity, just are creating the adulteration in the medicinal plant just for the sake of few bugs. All those things are to be taken care of, and there is a huge potential of medicinal plant in general and Himalayan medicinal plant in particular. We should have the policy on that and execute it religiously. Lot of scope. With these words, I thank everybody, those who have attended the webinar, for sparing their time. Both the moderator, I appreciate, and from the bottom of my heart, I profusely help the speaker of the evening, Dr. Raina. He has put up a lot of efforts to educate us on, again I say, the SWOT analysis of medicinal plant, particularly of the Himalayan medicinal plant, the strength, the weaknesses, the opportunities. Opportunities I underline, and the threats. He has laid emphasis on opportunities emphatically. So, with these words, again, I thank Mr. Shiv for providing excellent service this evening, a very good one. And I now thank one and all and call it, I think, the day. We had wonderful evening. We can, I think, wait for the next Tuesday. We will meet again with some other. Kalia ji, whether you want to say something? Okay. Good. Good. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good and good evening
Thank
to
you.
everyone.
Okay. Good.
Good night, everyone.